You need the microphone?
Good afternoon, Franklin Township, and welcome to the February 26th edition of the Franklin Report and Advocate News Hour. I think we're live. I wouldn't be surprised if we weren't at this point. I'm
sorry.
I'm Bill Bowman. What the heck am I? The editor and co-publisher of the Franklin Report and Advocate. And this over here is
the visiting. I don't know what I am. We've had nothing but technical issues all day. I'm not usually here in the Franklin Reporter office, but here we are. I'm PJ Parker. I'm also the co-publisher of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate. I think sometimes I'm actually the advertising director as well. But we're here today, and we're very excited to be talking about a subject that is more than relevant in this COVID environment, and we are focusing on Black business in the age of COVID. And tonight's news hour is brought to you by Provident Bank, and Michael Harris is the VP of Marketing, and he is one of our guests tonight. And Provident Bank has several branches all over New Jersey. And the one that's closest to Franklin Township happens to actually be in North Brunswick on Route 27. But Michael Harris can be directly contacted for any of your banking needs, including small business and large business and anything else that falls in between the banking spectrum. His cell number, Franklin, 201-725-1399. You may recognize the name. Michael Harris used to also be the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Franklin Township. So he will be here. He has a lot of information about business in general, and we're going to just explore the subject of Black business in the age of COVID.
yes, and obviously Michael is a Franklin Township resident.
Yes. Also, our other special guest right now, Eileen Marcial, who is the founder of an organization, a company that she does own called Legal Shield, Wills and More. It's a very interesting organization that also is coping with issues of COVID in this environment right now. And if I can even talk, I am so sorry. I will let Eileen explain who she is and how her business is or has not been affected by COVID, and also the broad spectrum of what it is that she offers any community.
All right.
So here we are.
So, and we also hope to be joined this evening by Dr. Randal Pinkett, who's also a Franklin Township resident. Randal is I guess by now worldwide known. Worldwide? Is that how you say it?
World known?
Worldly known? Worldly. He's a worldly guy. And he's a serial entrepreneur. He's founded 5 businesses since his college days, most recently BCT Partners, which is based in Newark. You might also remember him as the winner of season 4 of The Apprentice. He's been on national and broadcast and cable networks across the dial. And he's a very well sought after speaker. He's an author, first Black Rhodes Scholar from Rutgers University. Guy's quite accomplished, but hopefully he'll be able to join us later on. So the umbrella that we're going to be speaking under on this topic is the effect that COVID has had on Black business in this country, and we're going to try to drill it down to Franklin Township as well. Nationally, there was an article we saw in the National Geographic that quoted some studies that showed that about 40% of Black businesses are failing since COVID had started. That's 440,000 businesses. And there's a bunch of reasons for that, and we're going to hopefully get into that with our guests. So without any further ado, let's bring on Michael Harris and Eileen Marcial. Welcome to the Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour.
Thanks for having us.
Can you guys hear me?
Absolutely.
Yes, perfectly.
Sure can.
Perfectly.
So let's start with Michael. I think Michael, in your capacity as a banker, I'm sure you deal with other business owners on a daily basis, I would imagine, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Small business, from anywhere from small business to large commercial businesses. Yes.
So what's been your experience since last, we're going to say mid-March,
Yeah.
since last mid-March when things really started to kick in? What have your black-owned business, what have your African-American business owners been telling you about how they've been affected by this pandemic?
And does it fall within the national statistic of approximately 40% of Black business-owned organizations, business-owned business, Black-owned? I'm so thrown off by the 7-second delay. I apologize, Franklin. Again, statistically, according to the Economic Policy Institute, there is such a disparity between the success and failures of Black businesses versus other businesses, and the percentage right now is it's about 40% that Black businesses are not doing well in this COVID environment. We'd appreciate both of your perspectives on this.
Sure. Well, from my perspective, obviously it goes without saying that this has been devastating to so many business owners. I mean, I have personal friends, with small businesses, stores. Eileen probably can say the same, that have been devastated, for small business owners, particularly, even different than the big corporate conglomerate. Small business owners don't normally have, the plan B or the plan C. The small business that they built themselves or either inherited from a family member.
This is live TV, folks.
Exactly.
Did we mention that Michael is a family man?
So small business owners don't have, plan B, they don't have plan C's, what they have is what they have. And so the onset of COVID, and it unpredictable and not knowing, that it would probably get to the level that it is now with 500 deaths, no one planned for it. And so, had you known, you would have planned. I can remember, even on the onset and back in February of 2020, we weren't wearing masks or anything. Everyone was still kind of operating at normal. And it wasn't until March, and then this explosion. And then, even at the bank at that time, I had worked for TD Bank, and you had begun to see slowly the progression of how this pandemic was impacting businesses to the point where, things were actually beginning to shut down. But even at that point, it wasn't as devastating because, again, probably like a lot of you, this will last maybe a couple of weeks, and then it'll be over. But as it began to linger, I began to see the long-term impact of it with, retail owners, restaurant owners. If people can't come in to transact business, then you're not making any money. Fast forward to this particular conversation when the government began to put together a response of how they were going to help our small business owner in the form of the payment protection program. It really began to be tricky. And I shared this with PJ yesterday, particularly with African-American businesses. The feedback that I was getting, even from personal, is that, well, that's not a loan for us. And in reality, that it's not that at all. What I found was, in more cases than not, that really troubled me was it wasn't a loan for everyone. In other words, there was no race attached to the PPP funds. It was free money. The government put it out there. They gave it to the banks in different amounts, and first come, first serve. But even though it was free money, it still required a level of underwriting. Not big, but in other words, they weren't checking your credit bill, or PJ or Eileen. They weren't saying, hey, you need to credit score this way, as with a particular loan. However, there were documents and specific things that your business needed to have readily available in order to apply, in order to successfully get through the process. And most of those requirements were financial. And so what I found was, for the small business owner, be it a store or a restaurant or a clothing shop, and even some of the people that I've known, is that the lack of preparation prior to the PPP funds being released impacted them receiving it. And I think the word spread like wildfire. You know, one gets discouraged, and then I even saw it on Facebook, and I corrected some people. Oh, that's not for us. That's not for us. And I'm like, as a banker, it absolutely is for you. However, you didn't keep records, if you didn't keep financials, if you didn't keep payroll, if you were just going in your register and paying yourself and then paying your rent, and that was working for you for the last 15 years, because, you know, most small business owners do pay themselves. However, when it came time for you to apply for the PPP fund and sit down with somebody like me or one of my commercial partners, they're then going to require for you to go back and show us how you were getting paid. We need to see documentation. We need to see a record. And so though it wasn't the normal lending process, you still had to have a level of preparedness and a level of accountability in your own business in order for you to be prepared and to receive these funds. And unfortunately, a lot of African-American businesses, they start off with great vision, great ideas, and the excitement of it all launches the product, pulls the cart before the horse. The vision comes before the preparation and the foundation. And thus, when this thing happened that nobody expected to happen, then a lot of people that I know personally found themselves having to go back and regress to kind of piece it all together. And by that time, very honestly, the funds came and they were gone. Just that quick. I mean, by the time the funds got introduced to banking, you can imagine thousands of people had already applied. Those funds were completed very quickly. And so there wasn't a lot of wiggle room to say, oh, I need to go back and get this and that. So if you weren't prepared ahead of time, and unfortunately for our community, it was devastating to us for those reasons.
There was also an issue with the first round of PPP loans, though, of businesses getting loans that really shouldn't have been getting loans.
Oh, absolutely.
And getting millions of dollars in loans who really didn't need it. Yeah, absolutely. So that was. So Eileen,
well, what's happening is once the funds were released, you know, institutions, banks, you know, included, they're going to take care of their Fortune 500s, you know, and then the big companies, again, who really didn't need the funds, you know, took up a large chunk of it. So there wasn't a lot available. So now the numbers skinny down even more. So now African American and minority owned businesses found themselves even in a lower percentile in terms of their ability to apply. And even if they did have all of the things ready and prepared, the chances are that became down, that knocked them down a little bit lower.
Right. Now, this study that one of the studies the National Geographic article references also notes that African American businesses don't necessarily have the same bank relationships that white-owned businesses do. In other words, they're not always going in and sitting down with somebody like you and, you know, chewing the fat or meeting them on the golf course or stuff like that. So that was another impediment to them getting these PPP loans, right?
It's one of the things that I'm passionate about. It's a soapbox of mine within my community is, and one of the first things that I teach when I have opportunity is that if you don't know your banker, then you are selling yourself short. And that study is absolutely right. Most African-American business owners don't have a relationship with their banker. Actually, they view the bank as a last resort, just a place that I have to go to deposit my money, but don't value the relationship on the other side of the desk. Unlike, you know, my white friends and colleagues who value, I know multimillionaire business owners who will come talk to me about a $10 NSF fee. And so the level, really. So the level of their relationship, you know, with the bank, it doesn't discriminate in terms of how wealthy they are. They wealthy people come to the bank. I know Fortune 500 business owners who sit down at my desk and who have sat down at my desk and have a relationship with me and daily check in. And when I compare that to my African American counterparts who use the bank kind of as just like a pass through, you know, to give me my money instead of building a relationship with your bank, knowing who your banker is, them knowing who you are. So when you have an advocate. So that is absolutely right.
Yeah. I want to circle back to that whole idea of the banking relationship and other things related to that. I want to go to Eileen real quick. Eileen, what has been your experience since last March with your clients, your African American clients? Have you noticed the pinch hitting them? And how about you yourself? Have you noticed getting a little pinched since the pandemic has really set in?
Well, to be honest with you, my colleagues and clients that have their own their own businesses, whether it's a brick and mortar or if it's a home-based business, depending on whether or not it was something that they could operate from the internet, whether it was something that could become virtual, was the difference maker. My business is virtual. Since the pandemic, my business has tripled because I've done like 80 wills over this time period, simply because I'm able to do it from home, and people really have time to realize what's going on. But with regards to my counterparts that do have businesses that when shut down, they couldn't do what they do, like the hairstylists, like the folks that own restaurants, the everyday people that do stuff that is hands-on, they suffered mightily. And they're the same folks that weren't able to get PPP money because the first time it was a matter of, oh, well, no, you don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have this. And the problem is that it's a matter of not just financial literacy, but business financial literacy. But when we start businesses, it starts as a side hustle, and then it turns into your business. And next thing you know, it's doing great things for you. But most Black business owners are the core of their business. So they don't have time to sit down and chew the fat about a $10 NSF discrepancy. They are there doing the daggone thing that keeps the money going and the lights on. And so, I was approached by many people. Why don't you check out this? Why don't you apply for this and this, and this? And since my business was doing well, I didn't want to take bread off of someone else's table. So I never applied for any of it. However, I am in a position from a group that I work with that there are organizations that can help you get through this. The problem is this: most folks are so busy doing their business, they don't have time to dot I's and cross T's and make sure that, nine times out of 10 people didn't even realize they needed to have at least one W-2 employee to qualify. All right. And if you don't know what your rights are, you don't have any. All right. And with the relationships in the bank, yeah, it's important to have relationships with anybody that has to do with your money, but you've got to be in it to win it. And if you don't know what you don't know, then you're going to be doomed to continue to fail. So it's just crazy because with most small businesses, paperwork, I'll take care of it next week. Okay, just like with people wanting to do wills. I'll get it done. Next thing you know, they're dead, no will. All right. Next thing you know, you've been fined for this or got excluded from money that you should have gotten. But people like Ruth Chris and the large companies got it. Why? Because they rubbed elbows with the people that had to trickle down. And so I'm just fortunate to be able to know organizations that are able to help small businesses. There's a few things that came down the pike since the beginning of the year, and specifically to help small business owners, like the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Certain things, you have to, sometimes it is a credit thing, but a lot of that was relaxed for minority and women-owned businesses. And one of my good friends from Imperial Management Group, she's been getting grants for people like crazy, and the money's there, but if you don't know how to get it, then you're not going to get a piece of it. And so with somebody like Michael, I would love to speak with you more so I can connect you with some of the small business owners and Miss Walker Davis to see how maybe we could all forge together to help the small business owners get their piece of the pie. Because small businesses are the backbone of this country, bar none. And at the end of the day, if we don't protect them, they're not going to be here. And then, it's going to be even more suffering.
So you sort of reinforce what Michael said about African American business owners not having relationships with their bankers, and one of our viewers, Jacqueline Harmon Johnson, agrees. She says, "I'm guilty of that. I don't know my banker." So there you have it. There's the reinforcement right there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jackie, if I may call you Jackie, why do you think you don't know your banker?
That's a good question. Maybe if she's still watching,
if you're still on,
she'll respond. Yeah. So Eileen, you've seen a uptick in wills. You said, right?
Yes,
and
I
you
did.
think that's because are people just afraid because of the COVID thing, or?
Why don't we back up just a little bit? Eileen, tell us a little bit about what Wills and Moore is under the umbrella of Legal Shield.
Okay, thank you.
We all have a picture of who you are and what you do.
Okay.
And I certainly can also see a tandem relationship developing with Michael Harris. I think that's a good match. Absolutely.
We're gonna
I'm so grateful for this. Absolutely. We will be definitely.
Do we get a broker's commission on this? Any business that goes down between you two? I don't know.
I'll have my girl call your girl and we'll have lunch. Okay? My name is Eileen Marcial. I'm the founder and CEO of Wills and Moore LLC. I proudly use Legal Shield as my platform to provide affordable wills, living wills, medical power of attorneys, durable power of attorneys for my clients, as well as reduced priced special needs trust for those family members that have someone in their circle of influence that might need to have that done. And I love doing what I do, but even if somebody doesn't have a lot of assets, it's still important to have that living will, medical power of attorney, and financial power of attorney in place. Because it's basically a love letter that you're leaving for your family because you're telling them what you want to have done. I got no less than 6 telephone calls between the middle of March and the end of March. They're on their way to the hospital with their mom or their dad and needed a medical power of attorney, which I'd spoken to them about months before. But now they're on the way to a ventilator. And they want this document to be prepared. And I'm like, well, how are we supposed to do that? Because I'm not allowed in the hospital, nor would I go if I was allowed. So when I share these stories with folks are like, okay, let me get this done. Because when you look, the sad stories are, and there's so many of them just in our community. You listen to Carl Anthony Towns from the Minnesota Timberwolves. His mom, he's from Piscataway. His mom passed away in April. He said, I will never be the same person. But he's lost 7 family members. A young man that works in the Costco right here in North Brunswick lost his parents in April and 8 other family members because of COVID. So the thing is this, it's at the beginning, nobody was wearing masks because we didn't know. And so you did not know. There was no contract tracing. There was no way to know if the person you were standing next to in line, because there was no 6 feet differences at that point. If they had it, you had it. If you had it at home. And so the need for, even without a pandemic, people need to get their wills done. Because if you don't, the government's, the state's going to do what they're going to do, and it's not going to have your family's best interests at heart. And so most people don't get them because, oh man, it's going to cost too much. If I get one, somebody's going to kill me to get my stuff. It's like silly reasons, unnecessary reasons. So what I'm able to do, I can do a will, living will, medical power of attorney, and durable power of attorney for a husband and a wife for $300. Or if that's too much, you could break it down into monthly payments of $25 a month. But the main thing is to get it done. And we have fun. I did 5 last week, 6 the week before. There's an uptick in them because folks are realizing that, you know what? She doesn't make it seem like it's so bad. And take the yuck factor out of it because there's nothing fun or sexy about wills, nothing. But if you take the yuck factor off of it, then it's easier to sit down, have that conversation so that when the time comes that you are no longer here, your family's not squabbling, fighting, trying to figure out what you want done and things of that nature. But I think
in this environment where death has become such a prominent factor in everyone's life right now, 500,000 people have died from this. I know personally 10 people, including a 2-year-old, And
God, a 2-year-old?
it's just been horrific. Two very prominent people right in Franklin Township who happen to have been Black men, Dick Barber and Fody Munson.
Yes, Deacon Barber, such a great man.
Just so I think, without sounding crass about it, death is on people's minds, and death / wills / protection / medical power of attorney. That's all a tremendous subject matter. I mean, you're here at the right place in the right time. Unfortunately, but fortunately for your particular business, Eileen.
Absolutely, but the thing is, with medical power of attorney,
very necessary what you're doing, but people don't realize how necessary it is until they're faced with the necessity. And here you are.
It's not important until it's important.
Right.
We do have an answer from Jackie Harmon, asking why. You asked why, right?
Yes, I asked what would be the reason that you didn't take the time to get to know your bank.
No time.
Right. The time.
Right. No time.
Which is basically what I said too, is that folks are so busy doing their thing, they don't have time to stop into the bank. Right. And now, but it makes sense. I remember growing up, my parents knew their bankers. Mm-hmm. We do and you know what else? In all fairness to business owners, we do so much online.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the banks sort of drive you to that line, right?
Yes. But you know what? No, but now you can actually see face to face a banker right on the line. Friendly looking person, looks like he's ready to do whatever it takes to make sure that everything gets done in your favor, if it can be done in your favor. So it puts a face to it and makes you say, okay, now I don't need to do this online. Now I could actually walk in on Route 27 and have a meeting with Mr.
Right.
So that's good thing you're here, Mr. Hall. So that's to meet you.
But it is always, every business transaction, I don't care what level of business anyone is in, it's all relational. Oh, yeah. And when you have somebody like you in your corner to advise properly, you develop a relationship where you trust that person who knows thoroughly about his or her subject matter. And obviously, I mean, we've done business together. I highly recommend Eileen on a personal basis. And Michael, I mean, we've known each other for a very long time. I don't think you'll find anybody more personal and personable, as well as knowledgeable about getting the best for you to move your business forward. And there's nothing like having a personal relationship with someone who you are entrusting your business to. And that's in both of these people who we're fortunate enough to have on our news hour today. There's trust factor, and you have somebody who's an advocate for you.
Right.
That's it's essential right now. There's so much, as you said, Eileen, being done online that takes out the personal, and I think we lose when we do that.
Yeah. Let's try to bring it back to topic. I want to circle back to Michael. We were talking about one of the issues that African American business owners have is that obviously they don't have the time to create these personal relationships with their bankers. Something else pointed out in the study is that I think I saw somewhere the average white business owner is worth about $130,000. The average black business owner is worth about $8,000. So when it comes time for your restaurateur or maybe a nail salon owner and you're white, you may be able to float for a while based on what you've got behind you. But if you're black, not so much, right? Your threshold is a lot lower. Are you seeing that, Michael?
Absolutely. I mean, there is a huge disparity between African Americans and Caucasian business owners. The biggest one being that Caucasian business owners, and you alluded to it, normally start with something. They start with, some type of collateral. They start with, somebody set some money aside for me. They inherit something. On the other end, when it comes to African American, Eileen said it. I've got a great idea. I'm passionate about it, and I start. And I get into the pattern most African American businesses get into the pattern of the kind of check to check mentality. So they never get to the point of established. They don't start with established wealth. And if you can imagine, just statistically speaking, from a banking perspective, it's going to take 3 and sometimes at least 5 years before you actually start seeing profit without eating. You know, so if you're already starting your business, eating your profit, you know, for your expenses, and on top of that, you neglect a relationship with your banker to the point that you haven't spoken to someone to know ahead of time, as she alluded to be educated about what you may need, even if not now, but what you want to prepare yourself for, you know, in the future. When you begin to see some growth, you want to begin to establish your credit. You want to begin to do A, B, C, and D. If you haven't had that conversation with someone and all of a sudden you find yourself doing well, maybe your hair salon or your barbershop or whatever it is, business like Eileen's, maybe it's taking off. And so we have a habit of responding to demand, and now it's hammer. We're hammering the business. We're doing great, but we don't put the thought to, I still didn't establish a foundation for myself. On the flip, our Caucasian business owners, they live in the house that their dad left them. There's equity in that home. So before they start their businesses, I can tell you 100% out of 100, they've taken a loan against the home, you know, and got a $500,000 home equity line. Our Asian community, they've pulled their resources together and decided to live in a house together for 5 years and pool their resources. So by the time they sit down at my desk, they've already got $200,000 saved. And so, but the African Americans, because, you know, and I don't want to make this out of a big historical thing, but because, you know, it's been a hustle for us for so long, you know, we kind of hit the ground running. And so, you know, we're playing catch up in every way. And so for us, to Jackie's point, who made the comment, we don't look at the fact that I just don't have time. You know, I've got to make money. I've got to get it going. And unfortunately, you know, it leaves us in a deficit when we really need resources. And like she just posted, when we really need somebody to connect us to something, we have no clue. And then on top of that, you walk into a big, giant Chase Bank, you know, with 10 white guys sitting at the desk, and you're automatically intimidated. And not that it should be a color thing, it doesn't matter, but it's just the truth. You're intimidated by the brand, you're intimidated by the size of the bank, and you don't know anybody. You don't know Eileen, you don't know a Bill or a PJ who can say, hey, you know, let me warm transfer you to someone that can help you with your will. That can help your mother out. That's not intimidating. I don't have $400 an hour to pay a lawyer, and I heard that every time I do a will, I need to pay $400 an hour. No, let me point you to somebody. And so that's why I think our connection is going to be great as well. Yeah. In our community, we need the ability to be able to connect one another to resources, white or black, but something that is personable, something that can connect them to something that's not intimidating. It is intimidating. My mother passed from COVID, you know, PJ and Bill.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, in March. You know, I moved her in we moved her into our home, and then we transitioned her to a beautiful assisted living facility because she got tired of living with us in Morristown.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, and she's trying to take over my home.
It was a puppy.
Yeah. And 2 months later, a month later, she passed from COVID. I mean, just that quick. But Eileen, to your point, thankfully that I was in banking and I understood that before she got to the ventilator, that we needed to put some things in place.
Yes.
And I was able actually to kind of walk through it myself and do it all myself. Sign her up for Medicare and you know, get all of those things. But that's just because of my experience. Most people don't know that. And so all of that paperwork and all of the language, it can be very intimidating and just like walking into a bank. So absolutely, you're right, Bill. I don't know why, but historically it seems like our white counterparts don't necessarily have those challenges because they're connected to people, friends, you know, that can kind of warm transfer them into the things that they need.
All right. Well, you said you didn't want to make a big historical thing about it, but it is a big historical thing. I mean, for 400 years, right?
Mhm.
Black
Yeah.
folks have been
Absolutely.
from 1619, from the day the first slave touched down. Black folks have been oppressed,
Mhm.
and there's just no running away from that fact. And I'm trying to remember who said it. It may have been Jesse Jackson. I don't remember, but he was talking about. He may have been talking about affirmative action and why it was necessary. And it's not just providing equal opportunity for people. He said, it's like a track meet where you have a black athlete and a white athlete, and they're getting ready both to run, but the black athlete has his right wrist handcuffed to his right ankle.
Yeah. Mhm.
And they both have the same opportunity to run, but there is this impediment.
Mhm.
So that's why you have this affirmative action. And this is back in the 80s when it was more of a hot topic.
Mhm.
But don't discount the history, because it's there. And even in these studies that are quoted in the National Geographic article mention the fact that there's historical racism, institutionalized racism,
Systemic racism.
and disparities not only in wealth but in healthcare. And that's
Oh, let's not go there.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story, and we need more than an hour for that.
Yeah.
We need more than an hour for that. But the thing too is that in our communities, when we back in the day, we couldn't go anywhere else. If you died, you couldn't go to a white funeral home. You had to have your own. You couldn't get your teeth taken out or cleaned or fixed. You had to go to the place that was yours. That was your race. So now here, once again, it's a matter of not even having a remote edge, not even a slight edge or a sliver of an edge. And that's why I believe strongly that we need to have more financial literacy amongst everybody, amongst in the communities, because once you start a business, yes, multiple streams of income is amazing, but if you don't know it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And if you're not taught what you need to do, if you're not taught that, okay, this is how you set up a business. Yes, if you want this, then you need that. Make sure you pay close attention to your QuickBook or whatever you're using to maintain your finances. Because most of the folks that I know that either one applied for PPP money in the first 2 rounds or applied or were denied, their paperwork was crazy, and most of them were terrified to even begin to put their hat in the ring to get the money that they should have gotten, because they were the ones suffering the most.
Yep.
Because they were the stranglehold was hitting down. It's funny how the folks that are most vocal about the shutdown being so unfair weren't the ones that were suffering from it. They just wanted the TV time.
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted the TV time. They weren't losing any sweat, no sleep. But the thing is, with the everyday people, that had to go out and would have ended up sick or dead because there was no protection in place for them. So, it's a nasty situation. And, now we see what it is. We knew what it was all along. So we're not going to call orange a banana. It is what it is. But the facts are, so now we know better. We have to do better. And by doing better, we need now the young lady that mentioned that she didn't have time to meet with Mr. Harris as her banker. I don't know if that's your banker or not, but if it's not your banker and you don't know the bank you have, then maybe Mr. Harris should be your banker. Because now you can put a face to the name, and once you can put a face to the name, at least you can see, you get that feeling that this is somebody that you can actually talk with that has your best interests at heart. I see so many commercials here, so much identity theft has been off the chains. And all you see is all these LifeLock commercials everywhere you go, right? And they don't have your interest at heart. They're not going to do what they need to do. So the thing is that, I put my information in the chat so you can reach out to me if you're a small business owner and you need to connect with other businesses or find out how to get more activity, get more leads, get more business. Please give me a call. I can introduce you to a group that I'm working with. That's exactly what we're doing. In terms of getting that PPP money, I just heard today that, hey, let me go to my notes because I don't want to get this wrong. But as of, let's get this out of here. So, President Biden has reduced the PPP requirements for small businesses with under 20 employees. As of the 24th of February through March 10th, the things that was holding people back, they already relaxed the credit report thing. But if you had a felony, it's not going to count against you if you're applying for PPP money. If you have delinquent child support, that's not going to keep you from, because if you can't make money, how are you going to pay your child support?
Right.
Okay, so at the end of the day, instead of putting Band-Aids and platitudes on it, we need to put answers to it. And so I believe between working with a bank that we have a faith on and working with organizations that know how to, one, get that grant money or get that application through so you can get something instead of empty promises.
Right. So if you were to create a fiscal first aid kit for a business owner who something that you would have
That's good.
Thank you.
That's very good.
Something that you have in the back, in the background, in case like this, right? To lay a foundation for you to be able to weather a pandemic that's going to last more than a year. Eileen, you would say financial literacy would be top among the checklist items, right?
Yes, I definitely financial literacy, so you know what to do. So I started on a solid ground, but then also too, you need to know what your rights are. So I would strongly suggest that you have access to legal counsel that's not going to charge you by the hour, but right there to answer your questions, especially, be a resource for you when it comes to COVID-related things. There are some folks that are being evicted from homes. Some people have lost their businesses because they couldn't pay the rent on said business. So we have attorneys that can help with that too. So that's why I love the and more part. I love Will, but the and more protects the businesses and the families left behind because of that.
Yeah. It's always the and more that is most exciting. And Michael, on your end, in that fiscal first aid kit would be a strong, at least some kind of relationship with your banker. If you're a business owner, right? That can help you weather this storm, yeah?
Or how about even before you're getting into the storm?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody walks in and wants to speak with Michael Harris about, I'm thinking about starting a small business. What do I need to know from a banking financial perspective?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And even before knowing your banker, even for the people listening, and again, I'm not marketing myself, but I am in terms of, because I know who I am. Mm-hmm. However, it's not just the bank, it's the right bank,
Sure.
Because, banks are like socks, and shoes. It needs to fit, where you are, who you are,
I like that.
And where you're going, because some of the big conglomerates, and I've worked for them all. And so my experience in 20 plus years with Chase and the PNC, the B of A's, the TD banks, is knowing that, if you're starting a small business or a nonprofit, or if you have a small business, if you're watching and you have a small business, you may have a bank, but it doesn't mean that bank is the right bank for you. What do I mean by that? There are some banks that will, for lack of a better word, and PJ and Bill know this, when I was at Investors Bank and Provident Bank is very similar to that take interest in the true small businesses. I mean, they really do. And in that way, they empower their employees, their bankers, to help you in ways that some of the big banks don't do, because I don't want to say you're not valuable to them. However, they're concentrated more on a bigger market, and not necessarily your mom and pop shop. So not just the bank, but the right bank. And then the person meeting the right person at the right bank. And so if you're out there, I would question, who you're banking with, and simple question is, when's the last time you've heard from your banker or had a meaningful conversation with him or her about your business and what it's doing? What kind of advice have they given you during this time? What kind of resources have they pointed you? I'm so excited about meeting Eileen, because these are things that when I sit down with African-American business owners, it's just not let me open your checking account. It's let me point you to. Pete and Bill know this, that my relationship with them was not just personal, but I used them as a resource to say, let me point your business to an avenue that can help you advertise.
Right.
I know you can't afford
exposure.
But let me point you to somebody that can help you. And it was an idea of mine, not just for anything else, but to empower other people. And so if your bank has not connected you to people like me or Eileen or Bill and PJ, then you're probably in the wrong place. And if they say, well, we have no money for that, or, then you're probably with the wrong bank. And so it's not just the person, but it's being at the right place as well as a part of your financial literacy pack. I love that, Bill, as well as being at the right place with the right people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And just knowing that you have access, and this goes beyond any sort of racial qualifications, I would think, because to understand that there is an advocate in a financial institution who will walk you through and point you in the right directions. And then an advocate such as Eileen, who is in another path for protection, especially now in COVID when things are so precarious, that having personal relationships, I can't emphasize that more, relationship is essential. It's essential. You find somebody who you can trust because of who they are, because of their background, and they've already proven what their mettle is in their own respective professions. So it's and why that should be an issue that has a racial divide, it does. Again, as Bill was saying, let's not discount history, but let's also be in the position and be open enough to rewrite history as best we can, so that we can all achieve some success. Especially now, everyone is under this thumb called COVID. Everyone is frightened, but we're all trying to do the best that we can to help not only ourselves but our community at large.
And I would interject something as well. I would interject for anybody that's watching. Please learn to trust someone outside of what you think you know. One of the biggest things in our community is that African American business owners are so untrusting, of the. I mean, Bill said. I mean, rightfully so. The system hasn't been friendly to us as a people. And so if you're not careful, even as a business owner, you'll take that and either use it as a crutch, that will put you at a disadvantage, because now even somebody like Eileen or me become a part of the system. So I can't trust you. And I told somebody just the other day, unless you're going to make money and stick it all under your mattress, you're going to have to go through the system if you're going to grow. But I want to say, don't be so untrusting that you get in your own way, because if you're not a banker, you're not a professional, if you don't understand wills and testaments and all of those things, that's not your lane. Stop trying to figure out something that's not your lane. You might be talented at what you do, but I have a business degree. This is what I do. So you don't know more than me, and neither does your pastor or your cook or your mother or your friend's friend. This is what we do. This is what we wake up and do. This is what we're passionate about. So don't get in your own way by being so untrusting of what you have. And I know it's your baby. I know you're hiding it and you're holding it and you're saying, hey, I want to protect it. But in doing so, you can actually kill your baby or cause your baby not to be very healthy by not connecting to the right people and not getting the help that you need and the expertise that you need. And you don't know that until you need it. And then you realize, wow. And then you come to Eileen and you come to me and you say, hey, I didn't realize it, but I need a loan. And the first thing I'm going to ask you for is 3 years financials.
Right.
I've been using my debit card, all this time. Making great money. Well, if it's not on paper,
it didn't count.
You can't quantify it. This is not the 70s and the 80s. When we can just shake your hand, it's not going to work. And so if that's the way you've been operating, that's fine. She alluded to it. You can start again today, tomorrow, and you can get on the right track, and through platforms like this, which I'm so grateful for.
Yes, absolutely.
And point you in the right direction.
So, Michael, I'm sorry, go ahead, Eileen. Go ahead.
I was going to say that together everyone achieves more. So at the end of the day, instead of trying to say that, okay, well, no, I don't trust this person because of this. The thing is that we all are connected one way, shape, form, and fashion. If one of us succeeds, they can help somebody else succeed. But if everybody's failing, who's going to break out of that cycle first? So together, everyone achieves more. So you need to be connected with other business owners that might need what you do and might know 10 other people that do that need you too. So that's why I personally would like to invite anybody that would like to be able to connect with the group that I work with. We meet on Monday nights from 7:30 until 9. It's a networking meeting, but you're going to be able to see the quality and quantity of people that we're working with. We don't just like take anybody that's breathing. We like to make sure that these folks are qualified business owners, know what they're doing, specialize in insurance. We don't even have a banker, so definitely want to talk with Michael about that. But it's a matter of just
Sure you do.
together. Now we got a banker.
And Michael now has somebody for Wilson Moore.
I'll fight for my spot.
Absolutely. I tell you what, we'll have to definitely chat offline about this because
Definitely.
Yes, because I'm really excited about what we're able to do.
Yeah, this is
connecting businesses, and together everyone achieves more.
absolutely. I love the idea of this broad-based networking.
Oh, absolutely.
We should definitely talk about connecting to that.
I want to bring up a comment, and then I want to get back to Michael and ask him another question. Kevin Kamen asks, I own a small business, an LLC. My concern is, will I be able to do business again? I'm a gospel show promoter. Wow. Which means bring people together into one location, which can happen now for a show. Well, I believe the governor the other day kind of loosened up the restrictions for in-house worship, right? I mean, I think you're allowed to have some more people. I don't remember the number. The max of 150 sounds familiar, but I could be wrong. So Kevin, that might help you out. I know, Michael, you're very involved in houses of worship. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I agree with you. Unfortunately, we're at the mercy of CDC guidelines when it comes to those things. I know churches now are allowing, 50 people and or more. And so as a gospel promoter, one of the conversations that I would have with you on the side, and we probably can't have it online, is, to ask you a little bit about how you're set up, what kind of resources do you have right now. But in terms of you being able to kind of go, we're at the mercy of the CDC guidelines. I do know some people that do what you do are doing a lot of online.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
They're doing a lot of online things. They've kind of taken their promotion to online, to the Zoom platforms that we see.
Yeah, and there are music oriented, and I, for the life of me, can't remember the names of them now, but I know that there are music oriented online services, web-based services that through which you can promote a show, you can do the show, and you can have, you want to call them donations or contributions or payments or tickets, you can collect through that online service. So Kevin, I would suggest that you Google that, and I want to say Stage It maybe is one, but
I'm not sure.
I think it's called Stage It, but I'm not sure. But anyway, that's pretty much what I would suggest. Michael, I want to ask you now, we've talked a lot about how African American business owners don't have the time or the inclination to establish these relationships with their bankers, which they really need, especially when they're in this ocean of COVID. What do you say? What do you tell these folks to get them into your bank or any bank, but your bank, and do what they really need to be doing?
Again, platforms like this, me and PJ are talking now and trying to work out some things, because in everything I do, I try to leverage not just the bank that's behind me and the things that they offer, but I always have a networking community thing in mind when I'm reaching out to people and when I'm targeting somebody. I always have in mind not just the individual in front of me, but what kind of network I can create, for a business. And so for those, again, that are listening, who don't have a relationship, it's easy, walk into your bank and sit down and say, hey, I need to talk with someone. And if you don't hear something that's sufficient, then shop around. It's a bank on every corner, depending on the size of your business. Again, I do have some definitive recommendations that, if you're a small business just starting out, maybe the Big Blue Chase is not for you, not because they're not a good bank, But on the flip side, if you are just starting out and you just want all of the technology and all the bells and whistles, then a bank like Chase is for you, because they, last year they spent $15 billion on technology alone, so it depends just on where you are in your process and what you want from a bank. But I would, again, encourage everyone to connect with someone, and whether or not you've had a relationship or not, or you didn't think it was valuable, start tomorrow, make some time. I know you're busy. I know you got to open the store, do the hair, write the proposal, all of the things. I know you have to, but if you make a commitment to go to the gym and do all of the things that are important to you, I don't know if Eileen said it, whoever said it, if that business is paying you, then it needs to be top priority, because there are thousands of other people who did not prepare prior to this pandemic hitting. And my heart, every night I pray, my heart goes out to them, because I don't know how you wake up tomorrow when the thing that you've built all your life has been snatched away from you due to no fault of your own.
Or about to be.
Yeah.
Or about to be snatched
as
away.
well that we could be addressing.
Exactly. So it's a scary thing. It really is a scary thing. And I would that no one be in that situation, especially if all you needed to do the whole time was connect with somebody to get you some information,
Right.
And it can be very intimidating just to Google information and know who to call. So don't do it yourself. Again, everything's putting stuff out there. I've got my number and email out there. Don't do it yourself. If we can't help you, I guarantee I know someone. She knows someone that can help you. I guarantee that. I can't guarantee a lot. I can't guarantee that you're going to wake up tomorrow, or am I going to wake up tomorrow? But I can guarantee I can point you to somebody that if we all wake up tomorrow, somebody can help you.
Absolutely.
Somebody can help you.
That's good. There's another this. I have to put a link up later when we're done to this National Geographic article, because it's really well done, really well researched. Another point that it makes is that a lot of Black-owned businesses cater to their community, cater to Black folks in their community, and the issue with that is COVID has hit the Black population a lot harder than it's hit other populations. So these folks are either they're sick, or they've lost their jobs, or their jobs has been reduced, which means their income has been reduced, and then now they can't go and patronize their favorite store or hairdresser, or everybody talks about COVID hair. I know, Michael, you don't have to worry about that. But
I had a COVID fro. I sure did.
Okay, so I don't know that there's an answer to that. I mean,
Me too.
that's just something that is. So that's another thing that African American owned businesses have to deal with, the fact that their clientele is getting hit just as hard as they are, and that's another hit to them, in addition to whatever else they've got to deal with.
Well, to a credit to I've seen on different platforms that there are barbershops and hairdressers that are actually making sure that they spread the word on how to be safe, how to protect yourself. Make sure you wash your hands, make sure you wear your mask, where you can get the vaccination, where you can get tested. There being the education, because I never went to a barbershop. Okay. However, that was the education spot in the Black community for years and years and years, just like churches, hairdressers, that's where you learn. And so while there has been a major loss to clientele because of the virus, because sometimes even the folks that own the businesses succumb to it. And the sad thing is there was nothing in place to even save, all that hard work, all that intellectual property gone with them. So it's just a matter of just being able to salvage what we have and build on it. Just like Phoenix is raising out of the ashes. We can do this, but we have to work together.
Right.
And if I could add a point to that as well,
sure.
Again, it again magnifies the importance of, even if you've already started, you can kind of restart some things. Do you have a business plan? Because one of the questions that I have, and again, this is not necessarily a part of my daily job scope per se, but it's what I bring to the table if I'm sitting down with someone. what does your business plan look like? And let me take a look at it, because I'm going to identify, what your target market is. And if your target market is so limited to a specific group of people, I would probably challenge you to expand, because you want to have something, though Eileen and I are talking about our community, put me in front of anybody,
Exactly.
put her in front of anybody,
Absolutely.
and I'll be good, And so you need to have a business mindset that I don't have a black product. I have a product
Exactly.
that the market needs, and I happen to have African American clientele who may be the lion's share of who I serve. But that, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to have to put on your creativity hat and not limit yourself, to a market just because that market is serving your purpose. I say it all the time to people. There's a reason why you see a Popeye's chicken commercial and they keep marketing the same chicken over and over again. The flipping chicken, it's the honey chicken, it's the red
It's
chicken,
the sandwich.
but it's the same chicken.
Yeah.
What they're doing is rebranding.
Finger chicken.
Yeah. They're just rebranding the same product to appeal to different markets. For instance, I used to work at Popeyes. The seasoning comes in a bag, and any chicken they make is all
the same bag.
All the same chicken.
That's very interesting.
They can strip it up, cut it up, slice it up, and call it 10 million things. And so I would say to my Black African American business owners, don't back yourself into a wall by labeling yourself as I just have a black product. There's no such thing. If you cut hair, everybody needs a haircut. Or maybe you need to get a van and get creative and drive around to the hood and cut people's hair,
That's what I did in Harlem.
Yeah, while you're giving out a mask. I mean, you need to get creative, but if you pencil yourself in, to your point, Bill, then you are probably, they're hurting right now because they don't know how to respond. If all I did is have a soul food restaurant and my neighborhood love my greens and chicken, and now they can't come in to eat, what do you do? And so I say to my business owners ahead of time, and that's the importance of sitting down with someone who kind of can see the big picture. If someone had sat down with me ahead of time, I would have probably steered them on the way, hey, your greens and chicken may be great, but what if they stop making chicken? And what if they don't ship greens anymore? Then what are you going to do? I would challenge people to diversify their products and diversify themselves so that the appeal is not just to one market, that no matter what happens, again, it will be okay.
Absolutely. I'd like to piggyback on that too. It's a matter of getting out of your comfort zone. We get so comfortable doing what we always did, but sometimes that won't always work. So that's one of the reasons that I found that my business grew so much during the pandemic. I had to step out of my comfort zone. I don't like cameras. Okay, I'm the person talking face to face.
Looks so good.
I want to be staring at myself talking to you. Okay, this is definitely not comfortable to me. However, you learn to do what you have to do to get things done. And so you have to, if you're used, you can't do a haircut by Zoom. That's true. But you do need to be able to see what else can you do. And how can you, actually, I just came up with this idea. How can you be a race chameleon, in terms of what your services? Okay, so you do this one thing. Can you learn how to color hair? You do great, but can you do nails? To add something in to bring that person that wouldn't come in through your door otherwise. You have to, step out of your comfort zone.
Sort of expanding the number of revenue streams you have.
Yes.
Right?
Now, I've had conversations with Black business owners, and I've heard it more than once when I would mention that very thing, that your product and or service, it has no color. It has value, and that should transcend any sort of the circle that you've drawn around it. And the commentary that I've gotten back, and it's been a fairly constant commentary, is that my community is so underserved, I almost feel guilty if I don't exclusively serve my community. How do you address that?
I think that's being stubborn. That's just being stubborn and staying in your comfort zone because, yeah, our community is underserved. We're not saying do not stop making those greens and that amazing sweet potato pie. Mm-hmm. However, you might want to make a pumpkin pie and an apple pie because those will sell too. You may not want to fry the chicken. You might want to bake the chicken. Yes. You might have mashed potatoes instead of sweet potatoes. It doesn't, if you can cook sweet potatoes, then you could cook mashed potatoes. It's just a matter of just broadening your scope, and that gives you more of a product base for people to choose from. But if you're only going to do, we sell 3 things, and that's the only 3 things. If the people that normally buy can't get to you, then what are you going to do? You can eat it yourself? Or you could donate it to the first responders. That's a great idea. But donations don't normally bring money. But if you're in the market to be for profit, you need to do things that are profitable.
One of the markets that I love, and it's very simple. Everybody knows what a chicken shack is that's listening. And if you don't, it's one of those places that stay open at 3 a.m. On some highway, usually running through the inner cities. Kennedy Fried Chicken. But my point is that the business model is excellent. From just a pure business perspective. Let's point out the one next to Reverend Sori's church. You can walk in there, and even it's the bodega mentality. It's the nail salon, the Asians now. You can walk in there and literally get everything you need in one spot. They're just not frying the chicken. Now you can get sweet potato pie. You can get, and these people are from Middle Eastern countries, frying a good piece of chicken, making a good, hey, they don't make the
Popeyes flour.
Exactly. They don't make the sweet potato pies, but if you look in their thing, they've contracted somebody that makes them because they don't do that. And so what an excellent business model. Even when you go into the Asians, all of us are old enough to remember, I'm a 70s baby. And when nail salons and things like that were part of an African American community, you actually had Black owned salons that did those things. Now we'd be hard pressed. And I'm not hating the player or the game to find a nail salon that you can go to that's not owned by an Asian. Right. And they do it very well. And so when you look at what they've committed to, has nothing to do with race. They've committed to a business model, and they've filled a niche in a market that they know there was a need. They know there was a need, and they became excellent at that. They diversified, in what they did and how they did in order to meet several needs. And now, again, if you're a woman and you're going to get some acrylic done and all of those things, you'll be hard pressed to find a nail salon to get that done that's not Asian owned. Right. And you'll find very few. And I don't personally even know any Black owned nail salons myself.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah, so
I'm a connoisseur.
So you ask, how did that evolution come about? And to your point, PJ, it came about because somebody saw something, somebody that was potentially just making Chinese food, right? That's what we know our Asian brothers and sisters as initially. They have the Chinese store, but somebody saw a need in the market and said, hey, what if we learn how to be good at that? We know African Americans love put a lot of emphasis on their appearances. And so let's market to that. And so now here we are. I'll be 50 this year, years later. And again, you'll be hard pressed to go anywhere, whether inner city or not, and find a salon that is an Asian owned. So it just speaks to what you're speaking of, PJ, and what Eileen pointed out, that if you're unwilling to diversify the need of your market, then you're probably vulnerable. So if, again, to your point, that those good greens and sweet potatoes, you better learn how to boil the chicken, saute the chicken, fricassee the greens.
Right. Bad boys.
Exactly. You better learn how to do that, because PJ might want some greens, but she might not want any that's been boiled in ham hocks and all.
Oh no, not PJ. Oh no,
no, you both know.
Exactly. So
we can talk chicken and I go,
if you're not catering to our vegetarians, if you're not catering to our animal lovers,
And the
There's
gluten
always
free,
a
you gotta have that
way.
too.
You gotta have it. You gotta have the diversity. You gotta have the diversity. Yep.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I would like at this time Jacqueline Harmon Johnson, who I happen to know. I do want to give her a shout out. She is an amazing balloon designer, artist, and very, very creative on so many levels. She also does work not 9 to 5, and she's also an amazing jazz singer. Yes, she is.
Wow.
Well, Ms. Harmon, put your information in the chat so we can have it.
Yes, well, Jacqueline Harmon Johnson, if you want to put your chat information there for your balloon artistry, I've seen some of her work.
I'd like to know more about the balloon artistry.
In the music business, which is how we first met. And the very first time I was at the place in Newark called the Priory, which is a converted church, and there were concerts galore. And Jackie designed a woman's slipper. I mean, it had to be like 100 feet wide. It was absolutely gorgeous. It wasn't a slipper, it was a pump. Jackie, I don't know if you remember that, but oh my goodness, there's not a design she can't do. She designs jewelry. Jackie, please leave your information so that we can include that. And I would suggest that you contact both Michael and Eileen, because I think there's you can all help each other.
Sure.
Definitely.
We'll leave contact information for everybody
Yes,
in the
definitely.
comments. Well, I like this conversation. I like how it went. We did a little history. We took a look at the problem, and then we talked a little bit about how maybe we can, if not solve it, at least make it a little less frightening and
Yes.
rocky for
Exactly.
our African American brothers and sisters who are going through a rough time.
So I'd like to ask Eileen again. Just I know you put it in the chat information, but how would one want to reach you?
Best way to reach me is to call or text me. My phone number is 908-209-7498. And if you leave me a message, I'll call you back. If you shoot me a text, I'll respond. You can email me too, but it's faster if you text or call me.
And folks, you can see Jackie's ad in the monthly digest and also on the Franklin Reporter and Advocate website. Yes? No?
No. Jackie.
Not Jackie. I'm sorry. Not Jackie. Eileen.
Eileen. Yes. Jackie doesn't live in our neighborhood, but maybe we can talk her into it.
It's getting past 6:30. I'm sundowning.
Yeah, and Michael. I know Michael Harris is absolutely Franklin resident, and your office in Providence, however, is in Old Bridge, correct?
Yeah, I sit out the main office. And if you need to contact me, I put my number in the contact. But my cell number is 201-725-1399. And like Eileen, call or text. I'm getting ready to shoot her a text message right now to lock her in my phone.
Awesome.
We can get on each other's calendar. But yeah, call or text me. And I'd certainly, even if you have a bank, I'd certainly love to sit down with you and just have a conversation. And if you're comfortable with where you are and what you're doing, that's fine. I can certainly add value just by giving you information as well.
No, I'd certainly like to see some sort of perhaps a training, a pre-business training. What are the how-tos? It's not just the first aid kit, because that's after the fact. How about before the fact? When people are contemplating taking this passion and this idea, whatever that happens to be, and having it then serve the community. What are the steps? Maybe there's some sort of a training seminar or in the age of Zoom that could be organized as a result of what we've actually created today. This was not our original focus that we would interconnect like this, but absolutely, this is what life is all about.
Happens.
This is what community is all about.
Absolutely. I put something in here, Jackie. I have a big birthday party in 4 months and 1 day. And I would love to see what you could create for me. And she's a purple butterfly. So
absolutely astounding.
That's great. Well, see, we've made a bunch of connections today.
Yes, and we're happy to do this. We may have embarked on a whole brand new concept of news houring. We call it Business Connect.
You won't see this on the PBS NewsHour, folks.
No, that's true.
No.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. Thank you so much for coming on this evening and speaking to us and to our listeners and our readers. Really, really appreciated the really sterling to borrow your phrase, sterling information that you put out today. It was really great, and we thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And again, the Franklin community, this entire news hour has been generously sponsored by Michael Harris and Provident Bank. And Provident has banks all over New Jersey. As we said, Michael can personally be reached in Old Bridge, but the branch that pretty much will serve the Franklin community happens to be in North Brunswick, in that kind of no man's land that's in between Franklin Township and Franklin Township on Route 27. So please feel free to stop into that branch. And Michael has given you his cell phone number. You need personal financial advice and guidance. He's the guy. And Eileen, we've also worked together. That we've availed ourselves of your services. And Eileen appears regularly in the Franklin Reporter and Advocate. And she's compassionate and knows her business. And in this COVID age, we need to protect ourselves and our loved ones.
Absolutely. All right. Well, guys, again, thanks very much. And we will be seeing you both soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us, and have a great weekend and be safe.
Thank you. You too.
Take care.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Let's do that.
Huh. Well, that's
we're
interesting
we're
how
camera.
that evolved.
That was great.
Yes.
That was very organic. Hey, I want to say thank you to Kevin Kamen. Thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. Same to Gregory Jin. Is it Gregory Jin? Thank you. Thank you for watching. We tell your friends. We appreciate it. Okay, well.
And of course, Jacqueline Harmon Johnson.
Jackie Harmon Johnson, yes.
Who has become a follower of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate, and we thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Oops. And somebody had a question. It was sort of off topic, but I did want to address it. She put it in the comments, so I'm going to put it up here. Shirley Barba. Shirley, what I would do is, if you're looking for food, I would go to the food bank.
Yes.
Franklin Township Food Bank on Churchill. They are the folks who will help you, and I know that we've done a lot with them over the 7 years we've been around in this iteration as the Franklin Reporter, and they are more than willing to help, and they're the ones who can really do the best for you. All right, well.
And again, if Kevin, with your business in the gospel world, maybe you and Jackie can connect again. Jackie's a wonderful singer, and we connected because I think I'm a pretty good singer too.
You're a very good singer.
Nonetheless, this is not about me. This is about those of you who've taken the time to watch tonight. And if we can help make your business grow a little bit more, we're more than happy to do that. So again, I think we've stumbled upon a new direction, or another direction.
It's not always going to happen like that, but when it does, it's nice.
And that's fine with me. Yeah. It's what the Franklin Reporter and Advocate does. We boost Franklin.
We do.
We want to bring Franklin to Franklin, and if it's outside of Franklin and it benefits Franklin, that works.
That's right. And you can reach us, as always, at www.franklinreporter.com. If you are a Twitter person, we are at Franklin Editor on Twitter, and I'm getting more into the Twitter thing, doing more tweets of our story.
Oh, no.
Our stories. We've also I've also linked our Twitter feed to our Instagram, Franklin_Reporter_and_Advocate. So for the most part, our tweets are also being sent over to our Instagram, or our Insta, as the kids say. Much the same as these news hours are live streamed to both our Facebook page and our YouTube page. Folks, I would really suggest you subscribe to the YouTube page, because there may be times when we do things on YouTube that we're not going to do on Facebook, and you don't want to miss anything. If you need to get a hold of me, Bill Bowman, the editor of the Franklin Reporter, if you have an idea for a story, or if you want to complain about something, you can.
Or you have achieved some excellence, or someone that you know has completed a really tough course of something. We are all about Franklin and letting others know what's wonderful honorable and excellent about Franklin. So let us know so we can spread the word for you.
Yes, editor at franklinreporter.com, editor at franklinreporter.com. And if you are, as in keeping with the theme of the discussion,
and small business,
if you're a small business or even a large business owner,
that's right.
And you want to get the word out to Franklin residents, we have several different means of doing that. This news hour, as you saw, which we're accepting sponsorships for now.
We're not just accepting sponsorships, we're encouraging sponsorships because we typically get a decent viewership for that, and that just does nothing but serve you.
Right. And also our morning report newsletter, which you should also sign up for. It's free. Goes out at 5 o'clock every morning when there's stories written in the prior night, and it shows up in your email box at 5 o'clock in the morning, right after the New York Times, and it gives you a taste of what's going on in town.
As well as the day's fuel prices,
yes,
as well as traffic reports.
Yes.
And there are also advertising opportunities to take advantage of every person who's getting that email at 5 o'clock in the morning, who sometimes use it as their alarm button. Say, oops, it's the Franklin Reporter morning report. Time to get up.
Right.
Time to start my day.
And then there's the traditional, the news site, I should say, the franklinreporter.com, where we also accept advertising, and also our monthly digest newspaper, which comes out, as the name implies, every month. So ads at franklinreporter.com, that's her, PJ Parker, is the place to send in your requests or your requests for information about how you can support independent journalism in Franklin Township. And folks, you read every day. Now, the trend now in corporate newsland is for these hedge funds to buy these small chains, these mom and pop chains, or a bunch of newspapers, groups and whatnot. And, hedge funds are basically in the business to make money. And how do you do that? You cut costs. And how do you do that? The fastest way to cut costs, as we've seen over the past, 12, 13 years, is to reduce payroll. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they buy these newspapers, they go in, they decimate the newsrooms, they get rid of it's not exactly a lucrative endeavor, but they get rid of reporters, and they cut the salaries and the benefits out, and they'll consolidate printing operations, and they do that. But what happens when that happens is you have these things called news deserts, where you have towns like Franklin or Manville or Hillsborough, whatever, that aren't really being served, mm-hmm. that aren't getting covered the way they need to be covered. There have been studies that show that when a town loses its weekly, or not its weekly, but its hometown newspaper, mm-hmm. over the course of time, taxes slowly rise. That's because
there's no transparency.
There's no transparency. Mm-hmm. And again, I've said this before. I'm not saying that it happens in this town. I'm not accusing our governing body of doing anything untoward, but
especially since we've been here.
Especially since we've been here, yeah. But some folks tend, if they're not being watched, they're going to try to get away with it, what they can get away with, and then taxes rise and all sorts of things happen. So it's really, really important to support independent journalism, which is what we give you. We're homegrown. Mm-hmm. The money stays in Franklin Township for the most part. We have no corporate overlords. We're not a franchise. We own it. This is our livelihood. Mm-hmm. We're not sending money out to some guy who lives in Florida who wanted to ditch the New Jersey taxes and move down to Florida and live the good life. We are here in Franklin. You see us all over the place. Anyway, that's why you need to support us, not only with the ads, but also with subscriptions for the online news site. $37 a year.
That's 10 cents a day.
10 cents a day. That's the best deal you're ever going to get for anything. That's better than a cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm just talking myself out here. So, I think that's it.
I think we've wrapped. Yeah. Again, I want to thank our guests, Michael Harris, who is a Franklin son. He served, I'm not quite sure exactly how long, as
couple years.
The president of the Chamber of Commerce, the local Chamber of Commerce. So he's quite familiar with a breadth of business and industry. And you can see he's a nice man.
Yeah.
But he's learned. He's experienced. And Eileen is a little newer on the scene in terms of this business endeavor. Her background is quite extensive as well. But all those little things that seem to fall through the cracks when you're trying to feed your family that you don't necessarily think about, and a will is really, really important. There are other subsidiary services that she also offers. So I would urge you, take advantage of those we bring before you. It didn't start out as that being an intent, that we turned it into more of a community outreach, but you know what? That's what we do.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine.
That's what we do, and we may do more of that. This has spurred a networking opportunity that I think we're going to explore.
And we hope to have in a future news hour. We hope to have Dr. Randal Pinkett. Obviously, not talking about this topic, but he has such a wide breadth of experience
Mm-hmm.
that he can talk about a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've seen him on various television shows, and he and I have spoken a lot at different events that we've run into each other. So we know some of the same people, in fact, that have nothing to do with Franklin Township, which is always kind of freaks me out when different worlds combine.
Right.
And you know, how do you know that guy?
Right, exactly.
So
it's like you live in New Jersey? Oh, what is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he's a very good speaker. He's a very interesting fellow, and you know, and hopefully we'll be able to get him on him in a future date. So, okay, that's about it.
I think this concludes.
This is
the news hour of what is today's date?
February I think 26th. It's still February 26th.
Wow.
Yes.
And this is although we should have mentioned this at the top of the hour, this is Black History Month. I don't have to mention that to Franklin Township. We have a very strong, very vibrant Black community that also includes the West African community. And we're very proud to be a part of this incredibly diverse community that we call Franklin Township.
Yes. Yes. All right, Franklin. Until next time, as usual, stay safe. BJ, say that thing that you say.
And we'll be back.